Here.
Board Member Solis? Here. Superintendent Mr. Knudsen?
Here.
Possible correction and approval of past minutes. Was there anything from last month? Anybody? Nope. Okay. Agenda reorganization.
None.
Any agenda item clarifications?
Yeah, Ms. Myers and Ms. Erickson, can you please approach and speak to agenda item 16.1?
Board, Mr. Knudsen. 16.1 is a revision to our fiscal year 2020 annual financial report. The annual financial report has been revised to reflect necessary changes needed to be made in various funds to account for year-end reconciliation with the Pinal County Treasurer and the Pinal County School Superintendent's Office. I did highlight all of those changes that need to be made based on that final reconciliation with the County School Superintendent. They were very delinquent in their reconciling this year, which caused us to, again, we met our deadline requirements for the filing with the state, but however, again, we had to come back and revise the annual financial report for these adjustments. With the final adjustment, we did, however, pick up an additional carryover amount in our M&O, which helped us with the revision that will be presented at the public hearing of $133,602 in our M&O budget. And then there was a decrease in our capital of $16,289, and that was from an adjustment. That was from an adjustment that was made from a transfer that we were notified from ADE and for a federal project. And then there was some revenues that were inadvertently deposited into M&O that should have been into some of our cash funds that we were able, that's how we were able to get some of our M&O cash back and expenditure capacity back in our M&O funds. The other thing, the largest area was that the treasurer had not finished transferring expense of debt service, and that was $5,647,156 worth of expense. That was the final payment that was made for our bond sales and stuff. So that was the largest adjustment that was made. So we're done. Everything's reconciled. So are there any questions in regards to this revision?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Lucky, can you please approach and speak to agenda item 15.2? Or 16.2? 3. Sorry.
Third time's a charm there. I was like, where is he
Well,
going
it says it says 15.2. I mean, oh, I just need to start wearing glasses.
No comment. All right, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Knudsen, members of the community and staff. What we wanted to present to you tonight was a recommendation for looking at certain metrics to determine any changes in our current learning model. We want to make sure that we are doing our best to be responsive. We know that there's been an increase in cases in the community statewide and across the country, and we want to take those into account when we're making these recommendations for the health and safety of our staff and also doing what's best for kids. So in your board attachment, you do have the written plan, but I have a PowerPoint presentation that I'll go over that'll kind of highlight the main aspects of that. Do you have that up? Okay, perfect. So we know that there's benchmarks, statewide and district-wide benchmarks. What we see is a large variability in case counts and positivity rates per school. Many other neighboring school districts have adopted a model that looks at individual school metrics to determine if or when a change to their learning model is necessary. So that could be a change to a hybrid type model, or it could be a change to an online learning model similar to what we did first quarter of this year. Go ahead. Nope, never mind, I got the control here. Oop. All right, so what that means is looking at school positivity rates as opposed to looking at district or county-wide benchmarks. How you get the school positivity rate is by looking at the number of active cases divided by the total school population. That'll give you your percent positive. Active cases, and this is defined in the written plan, are those cases that are reported to the school that are within the 10-day isolation period for that particular individual. So that is within that infectious period and the period in which they are not allowed to return to work or school. Once they are outside of that 10-day isolation period, they would no longer be counted as an active case. The school population is a combination of student enrollment as well as staff allocation. We are combining active cases both with staff and students, so we're going to divide the total school population to get the correct positivity rate. The school community is intermingling, so it makes sense to add those two together. We will be showing you later the current percent positive for each of the schools, but I'm not going to get there quite yet. Any questions as of yet on this particular metric on how we're determining this, the actual formula? Okay. Yeah, can you advance this slide? Thank you. So what we settled on is two different metrics to determine a recommended shift in the learning model. That would be a 2% positivity rate at any one time would necessitate a change into a hybrid learning model. If we were to increase to a 4% positivity rate, that would be a shift into the distance learning model, again, that we employed first quarter. The time frame, minimum time frame for that change would be 2 weeks. The reason that we're looking at 2 weeks is that that's a full quarantine cycle for any exposures to any positive individuals, so you'd basically be able to start with a clean slate when you come back in person. That's dependent, of course, on some community interactions, but for the most part, all of those students would go through one cycle and be ready to return. So we felt like those two metrics give us the option and are being responsive. Now, what you'll see is a lot of districts are either choosing hybrid or distance, but we wanted to make sure that we're accounting for any really substantial increase in spread at the school. Right now, we haven't seen a huge number of cases that have existed or that have come about from quarantining individuals, but with the rising cases, we felt it prudent to make sure that we had this plan in place. So we have the hybrid at 2% and the distance at 4% for 2 weeks. Any questions on this piece of the plan?
Dr. Lucky, for those that are watching, and I know there are quite a few, you just want to give, we obviously know the hybrid and distance but learning, but give the rationale on what that
Definition,
is.
yeah.
Yep, you're perfect because you're setting me up for my next slide. Thank you, Mr. Daly. All right, if we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so let's first talk about the hybrid. So we have not employed a hybrid model yet. This is the newest for our district and is the most challenging logistically and for staff and students and parents. But the benefit of a hybrid model is it keeps kids in school, in-person learning, but still provides some measure of safety and allows us some additional protections and mitigations from virus spread. So the way our proposed model would work is that we would split our student population into two groups using the first letter of their last name. So we would have one group as an A through L group, and group number 2, an M through Z group. We know that we have many families that are blended families that may have siblings or even other individuals living in the home with a last name that's not the same. So because the purpose of this is to ensure that we're cohorting kids and minimizing spread, we would do everything we could to keep those kids in the same cohort. And then what that would look like, and we'll show you the schedule next, would be that students would essentially attend 2 days fully in person, 2 days in a distance learning format, and then they have a third day on Wednesdays that would look very similar to what we did first quarter, which would be asynchronous learning, intervention, small group tutoring, those types of activities for students. Next slide, please. So this is what that hybrid schedule would look like for our schools. So if you look at the green box, that would be your students that are in person. So you can see that on Monday, all students that had a last name of A through L would be in person. They would be online on Tuesday. They would be online on Wednesday. They would be in person on Thursday, and then online again Friday. And then your second group would start the week online. They would attend in person on Tuesday, online on Wednesday, back to online on Thursday, and then in person again on Friday. So they would basically essentially flip-flop. There's other models out there. There's some that are by week. There are some that do 2 days. I believe Apache Junction does a AABB, which means groups would attend in person Monday, Tuesday, and then online the rest of the week. We looked at those models, and there's drawbacks and benefits to each of the ways that you do it. This we felt like was the most appropriate to give us time with our kids in person, but not to have too many days on the distance learning model. Any questions on that so far?
Obviously, this takes a lot of planning, so have we already started the process of dividing those students? So, because this is a fluid situation, this could happen overnight. We have to all of a sudden change to that hybrid model. Are we prepared and ready with each of our schools' administration already preparing for that?
We've met with our school leadership and have outlined the plan, and they're already working on their process and procedure at the site level to determine those student groups. Yep.
Including transportation, logistics.
Yeah, transportation isn't as difficult with a hybrid model as you might think. Essentially, you'd still run the same routes, but your kids would be more spaced out. We've talked about really only the really specific routes around either students that are in placements outside the district or in special education routes might be of greater impact. We're working with our transportation director, and he has a plan in place to move to that model as necessary.
And we've been trying to fly this plane for 9 months while we're building it, as everything continues to change. So, you know, that's just the nature of where we're at right now.
My next question would be on the hybrid model, and I probably should save my questions to the end because you might end up answering them. But watching other school districts and how their hybrid models are going and how they are switching at the next quarter, the teachers are still required to come to the classrooms and teach. The large districts will still be teaching from the classrooms on the hybrid or the distance learning. So is that, what's our plan with the teachers? Because it only stated for the students.
Right. At this point, our recommendation would be that teachers would teach from their classrooms. We're able to sanitize our classrooms, keep teachers socially distant. So with those mitigation measures, there's very little risk. I mean, in the hybrid, they have to be teaching from their class each day, and then the online environment. You know, we're recognized that the situation's very fluid at this point. A lot can change between now and January, so we'll keep, you know, our options open essentially, but at this point in time, that's what we're planning on doing.
And for the kids without Wi-Fi, are we doing the same thing we did with the all online, bringing them to a cafeteria or a gymnasium?
Yeah, so we're still required by the executive order from the governor to offer internet to any student who might need it during the day, a safe place to access that. So that executive order is still in place, so we'll fulfill that. Now, keep in mind that these are in 2-week cycles, unless we do a larger shutdown, which would necessitate us expanding this model, but essentially the goal would be to give that particular school that time to reset their cases and to kind of get any kind of spread under control.
Okay.
Next slide, please. And then, of course, just briefly, our distance learning model that we did first quarter. We'll use that for any school that needs to move fully online. So that would mean students and teachers would maintain a daily schedule with Google Meets and meeting with those students, assigning both synchronous and asynchronous work, and then maintaining that Google Classroom for students. So it would be a little different than what we're currently doing with students who are quarantined, which is mostly asynchronous. So they would be able to run those daily schedules like they are now. So what we have here is an example of the number of cases per school site based on the total population that would be needed to reach each of those thresholds. So in the third column over, it says current active cases to meet hybrid threshold. So that would be right now, based on the school population, the number of active cases at any one time to for us to deploy that model. So at the top there, you can see Anthem, for example. Their school population is 796 total. They would need 16 cases to move to a hybrid or 32 to move fully online.
And to clarify for the public, that population is currently the in-person, not the population of that school, correct?
Correct. So
Okay.
we're taking just the number of
In-person.
students currently attending in person plus the number of staff that are there. And then you can just see Mountain Vista Academy, our smallest school, they would need 7 and 14 to reach that threshold. Next slide, please. To go along with this, and we mentioned this in the letter that we had sent on Friday, we wanted to update our dashboard to provide a little bit more information than is currently there. So right now, what you'll see on our dashboard is just the school site and the number of active cases. What we're going to do is we're going to update that to include the number of active cases, the school population, the percent positive, and then also the number of resolved cases as well. So to go through those, again, the active are those that are within that 10-day window. Can you go scroll up a little bit to the top, right there? The percentage would be the total enrollment, again, divided by the number of active cases, and then your resolved cases are any of those that have gone outside that 10-day isolation period and are eligible to return in person. So if you scroll down a little bit there so you can see the full one. So you can see Anthem, 796, I'll just use them again. Currently 2 confirmed active cases. That gives them a school positivity of 0.25%. And then they have 5 total resolved cases. And we started tracking this when we returned in person in October. So if you go down the line there, you can see, for example, Copper Basin, 0.19% positive. Santan Heights currently has no cases, so they're at 0% positive. So we will update this dashboard on a daily basis as we get those cases in. We internally monitor frequently on a continuous basis, but we have a data guy that just updates the dashboard at the end of the day, so we'll compile all those cases and report those each day for people to view. Okay. So that was the outline of the plan. There's a lot of details that we're having each of our departments work on as far as special education, technology distribution, ELL services, those types of things. Those are all currently being developed. All of those directors and program individuals are working on those details now to provide any answers to questions for teachers or for parents as we start to deploy this model. Any further questions from the board?
You might not have the answer for this, but normally, like if a 6th grade teacher gets it and we end up quarantining the entire 6th grade because, the kids rotate classes and they go through all that, do we know how many other positive cases are end up coming out of that? I mean, are they reporting to us after the fact that they've already been sent home and 5 days later we have another positive case come up from that? The whole cohort that was together, or?
So any case that's reported to us, we track. So if it's a student who is currently quarantined from a previous exposure, we have that student in our system. Now, I don't have the number of students to be able to provide you right now. We can certainly look at that. The county does not track that information, so it's up to the school district
It's
to
up
try
to
to.
okay.
Right, and to date, we haven't had a significant number of students that were in those quarantines. So for example, you know, on the dashboard, we've had a cumulative count of 122 positive cases with staff and students, but well over 1,000 students that have quarantined for exposure. So very low numbers as far as number of students that were in
Yeah, and
those
I think
groups.
that's my point of, you know, if what we're doing is moving in that right direction, if we are now isolating it and sending them home to ensure that that does not continue to spread, I just want to make sure that we're not getting those cases then pulled out and they're coming back, you know, before that 14-day period if they ended up being positive and not telling us, or how that was working, so.
Yeah, and part of this is a responsibility in a couple of ways on our community. One is to be able to be communicative with the district to inform us. Now, if they're tested and the county receives that data, they also contact us. But we can't control what people do outside of the school, so we do rely on them to be upfront and report to us. And it's also about taking personal responsibility about doing the right things out in the community so that we can still have safe instruction, and that's something that we are trying to preach as far as a message to our community to do their part. And we know we're going into a holiday season, and we want to make sure that we're all taking the proper steps, because I think we all believe we should be in school, but we want to do so when it's safe. And that's why we're coming up with these plans to make sure that if it comes to a position where we have to change direction, then we're prepared to do so.
How different is this from what, is this different than what the Pinal County Health Department recommends?
Well, Pinal County Health Department will still be in charge of shutting down schools as well. I mean, we've had one school shut down at Santan Foothills where there was, you know, they considered that an outbreak where there were 2 situations and they thought there was spread at the school. So that's why that school was shut down. They haven't, and Adam, you can correct me, but they haven't thought there was spread at the school since that situation. Is that correct?
So there's been 2 instances so far where the county has given us direction to close a school or classroom. One was Santan Foothills at the beginning in October. That was our first kind of outbreak. And the second was in a preschool situation where there was obvious, and it was mainly staff that were grouped together, that there was a number of cases from that. So those were the 2 instances where they have given us direction to close down a school or a classroom. Since then, it's taking each case on a case-by-case basis and making recommendations for quarantine based upon, you know, the information provided by the school to the contact tracers at that point.
So I know that we have shut down other grade levels before that, so I would think that we are actually taking it even a little bit more serious than Pinal County then? Is that correct? Because if Pinal County is not directing us to shut down an entire grade level and we still do it, then we're stepping above those guidelines, correct? Or were they, is that the only time that we're shutting down entire grade levels if they're directing us?
So what I can tell you is that I'm involved in every single quarantine and case report that's made. And every administrator that I speak with, we make sure that we're following the close contact protocol that the county has set. So our administrators and many of our health aides are required to kind of go in and look. And if we have indication that it's a close contact, yes, we're closing down. So in several schools, we've had to close down entire grade levels, even though it was really inconvenient and not a good situation, because we didn't have any indication that it was safe to have any of those students remain. They were all in a close contact and met that threshold. So.
And when they are quarantined like that, are we switching, do they automatically switch to an online distance learning, or are they just down for that 14 days?
So when a student quarantines, unless that entire classroom or grade level goes online, what we do is we have the instructors provide material asynchronously for kids, so post it through their Google Classroom so that they can stay on top of course material while they're in their quarantine, similar to maybe what they would do if they, in a regular year, that they were sick. If an entire grade level quarantines, it's a little bit more of a shift to the distance learning where they're meeting with their teacher and they're getting the instruction directly during the day on a schedule.
So they are still receiving instruction, they're not just having
In
a,
both
okay.
instances, yes.
Okay.
And then one other question. I received asking about how this coincides with what the state is requesting for the schools to do. Does this coincide with that same plan? Is it more strict than the same plan?
So,
As far as the benchmarks?
yeah, I had mentioned at the beginning that the state benchmarks are broken out by the statewide positivity rate, the COVID-like illness, and the case rate. This is more specific to our schools, and so we're still monitoring the benchmarks for the county and for the school district zip code, but because of the way our district is, there's very high variability between each school itself. So we wanted to use the school-specific metric to determine in that community, that school community, whether it's safe to remain in person or do we need to switch to a different model.
Yes, I do believe that the percentages that we're showing of the positivity rates in the school does not match what we're hearing within the community. So it's a lot lower than what we're seeing out within it. When the Pinal County reports, it's very high, but what we're seeing in our schools is not.
Yeah, so the metric we're using is still case positivity. It's not the same type of formula that they're using for the benchmarks. It's different data. But that's why we're using that to evaluate that school specific and how much spread is in that school community as opposed to using a broader benchmark like a countywide benchmark.
For instance, at Magma Ranch, this week was the first case at Magma Ranch for all of second quarter we had. So Magma Ranch made it almost the whole quarter without having a case at the school. So.
Congrats and thank you to them. That's what I would like to say. Thank
Well,
you.
I mean, it just goes to show
Thank you. Yeah. If you do what you're
put this
supposed to do.
on, and you know, it's hard for our teachers because they want to be by the kids, and we're telling them to teach like stand and deliver. You know, be at the front of the room and try and stay away from your kids in case one of them has it or in case you have it. You know, instead of having to quarantine a whole class, maybe only one person gets quarantined or 5 or. But so the teaching it's been difficult on our teachers because, you know, they want to be around the kids and quite honestly, they need to stand and deliver right now, moving forward.
On the hybrid model, I just thought of something. When the kids are at home learning on their off days from in person, is the teacher going to have the computer on so that they're learning along with the same as the kids, or is the teacher repeating the lessons in 2 different sections and then the other kids are learning something else on the off days on their computer? Are they live? Like, what does that model look like?
So because this is the initial deployment of a hybrid model, we're still refining some of how that instruction is going to look. However, we have already attempted to use the Skype in model where kids are online in a classroom while it's going on, and that hasn't worked very well. All the feedback that we've gotten is that is really challenging for the teacher to manage, as well as for the students to really get in. There's technical issues. So it would more likely look at like the teacher doing direct instruction on those in-person days and providing either reinforcement or follow-up activities for students to complete on their asynchronous or online days, and then flipping those responsibilities for the other groups.
My concern is just making sure we stay within that curriculum too. If we're shortening our days and trying to fit in a ton of curriculum into 2 days of in-person and then 3 days of online, that's a struggle for a lot of kids to make sure that they're getting all the curriculum that they need to be ready for the next grade level.
Yeah, and just speaking about just in general, the challenges that we've had this year is each of the learning models itself has presented issues with our students progressing in the curriculum. Our online model, we know disadvantaged a lot of students who struggled to maintain attention for an entire day online in a screen, that weren't able to interact in an interpersonal way. But even with our in-person learning, when kids are quarantined multiple times, there's a challenge there as well to maintain learning. So it's not perfect, the hybrid model is not perfect, but it's the best opportunity for us to blend what we know is important, which our kids are in person and receiving direct instruction from a teacher, with the health and safety of trying to mitigate if we're in a really challenging spread in that community.
Okay.
Any further questions from the board?
None.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other items?
That is it.
Okay, we are right at 6 o'clock, so we're going to move into the regular board meeting. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda of December 8th, 2020 work study session, regular board meeting? Motion was made by Mr. Thomas, second by Mrs. Solis. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Okay, motion carries 5-0. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, governing board member reports. Mrs. Solis?
Good evening, everyone. This is the last board meeting, so I wanted to take just a quick moment to tell you all thank you for allowing me to be part of the FUSD community over the past 4 years. I have been given the opportunity to learn so much more from you all than I'm sure you'll learn from me. And I really got to learn what all of you do as far as in education. You do so much more than teach. You encourage, you inspire, you challenge our students. You give life lessons, you give hugs, and you give support. You worry about having enough content to give them, especially during these times. You stress about being able to provide them the things that some of them only get while they're here at school. And you stand in as the adult role models that so many of our kids need. Every single staff member of every school in this country really has a hand in raising every single student that walks through that door, and I hope that you are very proud of that role. To every parent listening or in the room, please know that your children, while in our care, are surrounded by so much knowledge and love it can't even be measured. To my board that I've been able to share this seat with for the past 4 years, these folks are amazing. They work diligently every day, sometimes long hours of the night, sometimes early texts in the morning, to do what they can for the students, for you, and for the community, and I hope you recognize that. It is a lot of work, and it is a lot of self-sacrifice, and I thank you, and I'm honored to be able to share this.
Thank you.
To the new board members, congratulations. I hope you take the opportunity to really engage. If I have one regret, is that I was not engaged enough with all of you to even see more than just a glance of all the good that you put out into this world. So I hope the new members do take that opportunity to be more engaged with you all and see exactly what you do and how much effect you have on our youth. And that's it.
All right. Mr. Johnson, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, just a couple quick things. Is I had the opportunity this last Thursday and Friday to participate in our annual conference for Arizona School Boards Association. So that's the statewide association. And we met virtually. A couple takeaways from that as I look and reflect on our district from talking with other board members from around the state. One of the things that I think is kind of a blessing is because of the Santan Valley remaining unincorporated, we don't have a lot of multifamily housing in our footprint. So most of our students are able to live and reside in single-family dwelling homes, which I think gives us a little bit of an advantage as far as handling this pandemic, as opposed to as you get further into the city, into the West Valley, they've got a lot more challenges on because of some of just the housing opportunities and some of the challenges. The other thing is just looking at it through an equity lens. Where are our kids going to be most successful? And I understand we have to take into consideration safety of all parties and participants, but also looking at it from an equity perspective, I believe that the equalizer is if the kids have in-person learning, the best that we can in a safe environment is going to allow more success for our kids to be successful as opposed to moving into an online environment. I just don't think that is as equitable of a model, but we will need to go there if things dictate that way. Other than that, I'm just proud to be part of this board and opportunity. I know we're going to have some transitions coming in, but I'm looking forward to continuing to march forward, keeping kids first and trying to do the best we can. I didn't think when I signed up that I was going to become kind of an honorary scientist. I'm not planning to hold on to that role. The other takeaway is what we've all gone to school. So that means everybody that's gone to school knows what a teacher is and a teacher does. I can reflect that that's not exactly the case, and I'll use that from my own personal experience. I had an opportunity to play athletics in high school and college. I'm also continuing to officiate, and I realized the very first game that I officiated football, I didn't know a lot about football from the officiating standpoint. I know a lot from the player's perspective. And I think the same thing is we have to realize that teachers are a unique occupation, and just because we went to school doesn't mean that's the reference point that we all understand what they do. So I'm very thankful for our staff and our team that we have here in Florence. We're trying to support everyone the best we can and try to give the best success to both our students and our team. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Daly.
Okay, I'm going to try to do this without breaking down. This journey started for me about 13 and a half years ago, mostly because when I moved out here, there were 3 schools, I guess, 2,000 students, no curriculum. So I ran for the board, didn't make it, missed by 15 votes. And then the person that beat me actually resigned after 6 months, and they appointed me for the first term. This journey has not been work. This journey has given me a new family. The people in this district are flipping amazing. Every teacher, every administrator, every janitor, every cafeteria worker, every bus driver. To the new board members coming in, I see a couple of you. Please get to know every single one of them. Get on a bus and say hi to that bus driver and say thank you. And I did that, and I knew the majority of the bus drivers for many, 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 many years. Go say hi to the cafeteria workers and thank them. Stop in a building at 4 o'clock when the janitors are coming in and thank them. To the parapros, to the teachers, to every one of the board members. It's just been an amazing, amazing experience, and I'm very sad to be leaving my family, but I'm not going to leave my family because I will be around volunteering and doing whatever I can for the district. So thank you very much for this privilege.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
Well, like Bob and Katrina, this is my last meeting too. I decided not to run again. I've been here long enough. And I agree with everything that's been said so far. I'd just like to take a little bit different take. I mean, what a year we've had. We've actually hit the trifecta. You know, if you know anything about horse racing, we had protests, politics, pandemic, the hyperbole and the scurrilous accusations on all sides. It's just this cacophony of noise that's surrounding us. And so I have to really thank staff, teachers, and administrators that are able to filter out that noise and get down to what our mission is and what we're about, and that's taking care of the kids. And done an amazing job doing that. Likewise, I want to acknowledge the parents, because many of them are in a situation they've had to make sacrifices to some extent or another in order to accommodate our schedule and our on again, off again, and I really feel for them. Some of them have had it very tough, and thank goodness they have their kids' best interest at heart and are keeping them involved in education. So I just want to mention that hope everybody has a Merry Christmas. I hope we have a much happier New Year in the coming year. And if you think it hadn't been a crazy year, the Cleveland Browns are a winning team. Yeah, that's crazy.
All right, I'll start off with, we're all struggling. We're all struggling. And the one thing I have repeated month after month is just to be kind to each other. You don't know what the person next to you is going through. You don't know how the situations have affected them personally. So while somebody might have a strong face and might seem like this is not touching them, it is touching them in some way or another. So when you direct your anger because you're frustrated over everything, it does not help. We need to work on this together. I know the board and it will be changing, but we have always responded. We have always said, we take in what you say. But when you just say, you need to do something about it, and there's not any kind of collaboration of what we're doing, it doesn't move anything forward. All it is doing is kind of turning everybody against each other. We are in the same situation that you are. This district has constantly been trying to change with the fluid times, and we are constantly trying to do what is right by the kids and by our staff. With that, I mean, you have to do your part too. You're in the community, you're out doing things. We're not people that are just going to sit in the home and just wait until it's safe to go outside, because that's never going to happen. Every time we get into a vehicle, it's scary. You don't know what the next person is going to do next to you. But when you go out, you have to do the safe practices to ensure that you are not going to bring something home to somebody else. That's why we're trying to do the best things in our classrooms to ensure that you are not taking something home. But if you go out and you go shopping and stand in that 4-hour line for candles, and then you want to complain that you get ill and you come in and now everybody has to get sick, that's not right. And that's just not what's coming into our school, but it's just community spread. I mean, I try not to go to the stores because I don't like to anyways, but when I go out, I'm like, man, where are all these people coming from? Like, aren't they worried? Because everything that I hear back is that everybody in the community is worried, but yet I go out and there's lines everywhere. And most of the people are not wearing masks. I went to a dance event in another community outside of the area, and there was probably 200 people in attendance, and maybe 10 had masks on. Not socially distanced, not anything. But then what's going to happen when those kids go to school and somebody is sick? Then the school is being looked at like you're not being responsible. It has to start at the community. It has to start at home. If you are not feeling well, stay home. Just stay home. Let's not take the chance of getting anybody else sick. Let's keep moving forward and do what's right by our kids and making sure that they're staying educated. I said earlier, I'm worried about the curriculum. A lot of kids struggle, and we've had this first semester has just been rocky, and I don't want to go into another semester where we're even pushing them even further behind. We have to continue to do what's right, and being in school is best for the mental health, so it's just all around, we're all better. As long as we start looking at the positives and making sure that our kids are safe in our classroom, we are being safe in our classrooms. We can't control what they do when they get home, but we can control what happens when they're in our class. And we just need to remain positive. And I mean, I watch what's going on in other districts, and we're lucky. We are lucky what's going on here, so we have to stay together, remain positive, and keep moving forward. With that, Bob and Jim, it's been a great 10 years working with you guys. Great. I mean, I don't know what to say. Well, she's coming. But with you guys, it's been 10 years. We have had, four superintendents in that time? 4 superintendents. We've had a teacher strike. We have the pandemic. We've had repeated things, and what we have done and working together is continuously moving forward, and that's because of your commitment to this district, and so thank you for that. Katrina, 4 years is a long time too. You know, I can say that before I ran, I came to every board meeting for a year. I sat out there and I tried to watch what was going on. But the second that I got up here, I was like, whoa, I don't know what I'm doing. There is nothing. So any commitment that anybody gives back to the schools is just amazing. And I can't thank you enough for your commitment and trying to do what was best for our district. Because you've had the teacher strike, the pandemic also. So it has not been easy for anybody. So with that, the new board members, I commend you. I commend you because this is a time where it is very hard to walk into a district. It's not, no matter how well we are doing as a district, we have a lot of challenges ahead. And this is the biggest challenge that we have, which no one really has answers for because there is no answers throughout the country. So I commend you for coming on. I welcome you. I'm looking forward to working with you guys. So thank you very much. And that's it from all of us today. It's your turn, Chris.
Yeah, I agree. I've been here since 2008, and We've had great school boards the whole time, and in the last 4 years as I've been your superintendent, I absolutely have enjoyed every meeting. At ASBA, the collegiality and how I think our board and how you guys are viewed in this state is something that a lot of places want to be like. Because I talk to a lot of superintendents, and they spend 80% of their time, some of them, dealing with board members who can't get along. And I can honestly say, I have never once witnessed or experienced that in Florence Unified School District. That is what makes this place special. So the three of you that are moving on, I know you'll be around. But thank you very much for your service to the kids in the community. And the three that are coming on, welcome. This is a wonderful place to work. You know, Denise was talking a little bit about positivity, and, I got a little bit of experience wearing these masks, when I was a younger version of myself. About 98, my middle child was diagnosed with leukemia, and she battled for 7 years, and we lost her in 2005, and the whole time she had a compromised immune system. And we did everything we could in the house, put masks on her. So, when this thing hit, when we found out that we were going to be shut down, Adam and I were in LA at a superintendent symposium on February 6th. The keynote speaker came on and said, "Are you guys prepared for when you have to shut your schools down?" And then that's when it got real for me. I mean, it didn't get real for everyone else until March when they shut us down. But, I was in a meeting early on with the 12 superintendents and the governor, and I asked him, I said, you have to let everybody in the schools put a mask on. You have to mandate that. And he did that. And, for the most part, I look at the last quarter that we've been in session, and, Adam showed you the numbers of spread in our schools. It works. So, we've had a lot of challenges the last 10 months, a lot, every one of us. I mean, we all have done jobs that are not in our job descriptions. Our biggest struggle has been dealing with trying to keep our schools clean. Our biggest struggle has been dealing with, staffing when quarantines hit this last quarter. And it has not been easy on anybody. But, when Haley was sick for 7 years, I always had rose-colored glasses, and I thought we were going to have a positive outcome. And I feel the same way right now. Everyone has had to deal with, losing kids in their classroom to quarantine, and it's been very difficult on all of us. But I look at it from a positive standpoint. Some people say I'm, what's the word, Adam? Toxically positive. But maybe in our younger generations, that's a negative connotation. I accept that as something that is positive. I got a sub in a PE class all day, and I got to spend a whole day with our kids, and I'll tell you what, our kids are awesome. I wasn't disrespected by one kid. And I watched the kids in PE clean the balls at the end of every class period. I heard about kids in the school that clean every desk at the end of every period. And it makes me see that there's so many of us across the district that are going above and beyond to try and do our parts to mitigate the spread. And I meet weekly with our association, and they asked about, is there a chance we could come up with something in case it gets bad to go to hybrid? And, that was, we came up with this plan this week as we're trying to fly this plane into Christmas break. And I'm very proud that we made it to Christmas break. I'm very proud that every staff member got to, if they wanted to continue to work, they continue to get paid, because there's millions of people in this country right now that have lost their jobs and their homes. Just turn on the news and you see it every single night where people aren't getting their unemployment checks because their ID is not being accepted by, you know, the Department of Economic Security, so they don't know how they're going to get their next meal. But I think in our district, you know, I met with a number of parents as I went out and took pictures with our Students of the Month, and the majority of our parents that I met with when we took those pictures were very thankful that they had a choice to come back or stay online. And I think we gave everyone that opportunity to make a choice, and it has not been easy on any of us. I met with Supervisor Goodman today as our teachers hopefully are going to be given the vaccine here in the next month. I mean, don't quote me on that, but our teachers are in that group that are supposed to get it, like the frontline workers. I'm hoping that happens, and I don't know, I just think, I agree, we need to be nice to one another, and we need to stay positive and do the best we can, but let's start off with
Can I interrupt you real quick? I'm sorry, because I wanted to touch base on something that you had said about everybody stepping up and subbing, and I didn't say anything, so before we go to that, do you mind if I?
Oh, sure.
So I did want to say that I asked for a report on our admin, because it doesn't, everybody, you know, when you're not feeling well, we tell you to stay home. Well, we all know there's not enough subs out there to cover all these classes, and we want to ensure that our kids are staying in school where they belong. And I will tell you that I have the list in front of me, and almost every single administrator from the district down has covered classes within the schools. From not just a classroom, but we have a registrar, we have a nurse. You know, Rita went and did PE. Good job, Rita. So,
They called her coach. Hey, coach, can you put me in?
You know, this is what it takes, though. This is what it takes. This is where you know that the district is committed to not only saying that we want to stay open because we want to stay open. We're not going to stay open at the sacrifice of the health, but what we're doing is saying, we have you. If you need to stay home, don't feel that you have to come in because we don't have a sub. We're going to have your back, and we're going to make sure that your kids are still taken care of. And so this says a lot to me when I'm telling you, all the way from the district down, everybody has been subbing classrooms, and that takes a lot. So thank you, Chris, and your staff and all of your administrators for doing that.
Thank you. Dr. Leckie, please approach and let's give out some student awards. Now, we couldn't bring the kids down here like I wish we could, but we felt like it was time to try and figure out a way to recognize our kids. And I'll tell you what, unfortunately, you guys all couldn't be there when I was out handing out medals.
So, thank you. So we, again, we were unable to do our normal student awards and staff recognition at our regular board meetings. And up until now, we didn't feel prepared to do so, but we really wanted to get back to that. That's the fun thing. That's what we all love about our board meetings, is it celebrates kids, recognizes the hard work that our kids are doing every day. So we wanted to find a way to recognize them and do it meaningfully and be able to present it at a board meeting. So Mr. Knudsen and Ms. Ize went out to every school site and took pictures with our Students of the Month. Mr. Green has then compiled that into a video for us so that we can recognize them here at the board meeting. So we're going to play that video for you now.
I didn't shake any hands or take my mask off.
in January.
I miss the kids, so thank you for that little glimpse of them. We have not been in a classroom yet this year, so thank you.
Shadow box. And, I'm sorry. This signifies that Jim has been a board president multiple times, so. No handshakes. And this is made from, when we had to redo the floor out here, this is made from the wood of the original Florence High School. Is that correct, Tony? It is. And it says an appreciation of service presented to James Thomas in recognition of 20.5 years of service and dedication as a governing board member of the Florence Unified School District Governing Board. Thanks, Jim. Thank you. Mr. Daly, come on down. We also have a shadow box for him with a gavel for being a board president. Bob Daly, 14 years of service on the Florence Unified Government. And this one says an appreciation of service presented to Bob Daly in recognition of 14 years of service and dedication as governing board member of the Florence Unified School District Governing Board. Oh, okay.
That's why I coached.
Oh, you did? Hey, Katrina. In appreciation of service presented to Katrina Solis in recognition of 4 years of service and dedication as governing board member of the Florence Unified School District Governing Board. And welcome Tammy Quist, Roger Beatty, Sherry Jones, who will be joining us in January.
If each of them could stand up. Yeah. We'll make more formal introductions. Yes, we're going to have a swearing in after. Okay, we had an agenda item out of order, so we're going to go back and we're going to do the notice to public hearing to present the fiscal year 21 school expenditure budget, revision number 1. Ms. Myers and Ms. Erickson? Sorry about that, it was up in somewhere else where.
That was my error. I put it wrong on the agenda.
In accordance to ARS 15-905E, the governing board is holding this public hearing to present the FY21 school district expenditure budget revision number 1 for consideration by the residents and taxpayers of the district. The district was notified that the Arizona Department of Education reviewed the district's FY21 budgeted expenditures to determine if those expenditures exceeded the general budget limit and/or the unrestricted capital budget limits as calculated by the Department of Education. Based on the district's budget analysis report, we call it the BUD 25, which includes values from the district's fiscal year 21 adopted budget expenditure that was submitted by the district in July, and the district's FY21 A455 form, which is a report that is calculated by the Department of Education that was dated on November 2nd. The district was advised that we are required to revise our fiscal year 21 budget by December 15th to reduce the expenditures to within the Arizona Department of Education's calculated budget limits. Now, I don't know if you've heard, every single district in the state basically has been hit by a substantial decrease in their budget limits. So I'll have Ms. Erickson now go through those adjustments and show you the impact of the reduction that our district's been hit with.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Knutson, and community. This explains what our district had budgeted for M&O for this fiscal year. ADE calculated the new limit at $56.8 million, which is a reduction for us in $9.5 million. And there we go. So, sorry, technical difficulties. So, according to Arizona revised statute, we are required to revise the budget by December 15th to reduce our expenditures that fall within that new calculated limit. So, with the implementation of current year funding, we're required to, through the monitoring of enrollment, withdrawal data, make those changes according to what the ADE stipulates. So ADE notified FUSD that a budget reduction was required, and as Ms. Myers said, this happened to districts across Arizona, and it relates to a difference in what our projected ADM was based on fiscal year 20, which we projected 9,209 students. Our actual ADM reported on November 2nd was 7,600. That's a decline of 1,600 students. That is something that is not unique to FUSD. There are students that are out in limbo all over Arizona. How will we offset this $9.5 million budget reduction? As Ms. Myers mentioned earlier in her presentation, we did have a carryover of $4.4 million due to a reduction of expenditures from last year that we utilized. We also received $2.6 million in an enrollment stabilization grant, and then we had to transfer $2.5 million of capital into M&O to cover the remaining. So on an ongoing basis, we'll continue to monitor changes in this fiscal year 2021. We'll look at student enrollment data, withdrawal activity, and continue to review the Budget 25 report for changes and updated calculated limits for revisions. That will continue. We're required by the state of Arizona to continue to reduce the budget that fall within those limits calculated by ADE. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have one. So the governor said that the max reduction we would have would be 2%. What percent is 9.5?
That is greater than 2%. However, with our ADM and, okay, so they will also look at our ADM. And if you look at our current number of students with the offset of the stabilization grant, really the difference between last year and this year with our carryover does fall within that 2%.
So because we had a $4.4 million carryover, they sweep that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Wonderful.
Was there any questions from the public? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, our next item will be call the public. Michelle, did we have any? Yes, we do. Okay, when we call you up, just state your name, and then you'll have your 3 minutes to speak. If the item is something that is on the agenda, then the board can address any questions or answer anything that you could have. If it is not an item that is on the agenda, the board will have to remain quiet in regards to it, and I will direct the superintendent to further look into it. Okay, your first one was gonna be Ashley. I just call you up by first name. Ashley.
Don't want to dare say my last name anymore, do you?
Exactly.
What? By the end of this year, you better have it down.
I should
I'm testing you.
have.
All right, good evening, Madam President, Superintendent Knutson, school board members, and members of the community. Yes, my name's Ashley, me. I am here coming today as a parent in our district. I continue to receive texts and emails from other parents in the district asking for one main thing, and that's communication. As a parent, we just want to make sure that our children are safe and are being put first when it comes to having our children safe in schools. Looking at the new proposal, I have some things that stand out that concern me as a parent. The percentages seem really high, and it seems like it should look different for each grade level. A positive case in a lower level most likely will not affect my child in an upper grade level. So why are we not breaking the percentages down by the areas of the school instead? Some parts of the school are in cohorts, and other parts of the school are not in specific cohorts due to rotations of classes. I believe that staff and parents would feel more comfortable if it was broken down this way instead. The percentages that you have now show that it will never happen. We have an outbreak before anything else will be done. From experience, I also know that our health department is way behind in reporting to be honest, we can't rely on parents to actually call in positive cases. Students talk and make sure they don't call in about positive cases because they don't want their lives to change for the safety of people around them. At my school, for example, K through 4 and our specialty classes are in cohorts. So have this as a specific percentage for each grade level on whether or not to move to the hybrid or online schooling. 5 through 8 at my school are not in cohorts due to electives. Therefore, they move around. My husband and I chose to have our children go to school for multiple reasons, but we are also sacrificing seeing family and friends because I have chosen for my kids to go to school. We want to be safe in the schools, and for that reason, we are relying on our district leadership to make the best decisions for our staff and students. As a parent and a teacher, I want our students and my children to be in school full-heartedly. But we want to know that our district leadership is making sure our students and staff are safe when we step into our doors at our school.
This is an item on the agenda. Does anybody have any comments? I do think that what I said about earlier about the grade level breakouts, I do believe that we are already currently doing that. I could be corrected by Dr. Leckie or Mr. Knutson, but if there is a breakout within that if there's a positive case within that, and they are within that close proximity and do fall within those guidelines, we are closing those grade levels down, correct, and moving them to a hybrid or the online distance learning? It is currently distance learning, not even hybrid, correct? Okay. I just want to make sure, because I have heard that going on in certain schools, so I just want to make sure that we are, like, that wouldn't change, I don't believe, moving forward into a new plan. I don't think that, am I wrong?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Ashley. Jody?
My name is Jody Hector. Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent Knudsen, and school board members. As you know, we are in the red for 2 out of 3 benchmarks, which is over 10%, and almost red for the third in Pinal County. According to the school dashboard, we should have been in a hybrid model for the last several weeks. The new model that is being proposed tonight is concerning. This model is based on the number of confirmed active cases being reported. This is misleading because many cases are not being reported. So how do we accurately measure this while keeping everyone safe? The students, parents, and teachers deserve safe schools, and do we really need to wait for 4% confirmed positive cases, which would be 48 cases at Post and Butte? Not to mention the cases that are not reported, before we go back to a distance learning model for 2 weeks at a time. So is the goal of this plan to put all the responsibility on the health department? Because if 4% of the school has COVID, so many people would have been exposed, and the health department most likely would have shut us down first. In addition, we are having trouble following the current return to learn plan for cleaning, notifications, and communication. I know the district is doing its best, but until we fix this, teachers do not feel that safety is a priority. This district plan goes against the state health benchmarks, specifically designed for schools. The district plan conveys to the public that we are going to stay open no matter what, and not even consider the state benchmarks and the safety of our community. I think we can do better. There's a governing board policy that states the school district will take reasonable measures to protect students and staff from the transmission of communicable diseases in a manner that is consistent with the state and federal laws. The proposed district plan goes against the state metrics and is breaking this policy. I've heard several times from board members and admin that teachers had a choice and this is what we signed up for. I disagree because this is not just a job that we can leave. This is our career. Plus, not all teachers had the option of teaching at FVA because there were limited openings. Like me, most teachers chose to come back in person because we believed we had a solid return to learn plan. Teachers felt the district would keep them safe, and they trusted in the district to follow the state health benchmarks. But according to this plan, that is not the case. If I would have known what I know today, I might have made a different choice. I get phone calls daily with concerns that safety is an issue and that the return to learn plan is not being followed consistently. According to the CDC indicators for risk of COVID in schools, if social distancing isn't possible and the cleaning and disinfecting isn't consistent, it puts the schools at higher risk of transmission. Where is the data that shows that COVID isn't being spread in the schools when most of the students quarantined don't even get tested or report to the health department?
Your time's up, Jody. Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board? None? Okay, Melissa Rodriguez.
Good evening, Madam President, school board members, Superintendent Knudsen, and members of the community. My name is Melissa Rodriguez. I am a teacher at Santan Foothills High School, as well as a parent of 3 students in our school district. As FEA site representative at Santan Foothills, I'm honored to represent the passionate, dedicated, hardworking teachers and staff at Santan Foothills. Teachers are the heart and soul of our community and should be valued and highly esteemed. Many teachers have invested blood, sweat, tears, money, time, sacrificed their own needs to provide opportunities for their students. Kids First is not simply a motto for the teachers, it's a philosophy that is deeply ingrained in the fabric of our very existence. And I respectfully ask that you consider the opinions of the hundreds of teachers on the front lines who will be deeply affected and placed more at risk by the district's new model that has been proposed tonight. The threshold numbers are a high concern for each school, specifically Santan Foothills. And we spoke, Madam President, you spoke about collaboration and team efforts. So I'm asking that you would consider, prior to voting, visiting the schools, spending time with teachers. I've taken a photo of one of my coworkers. Her classroom today has over 35 students unable to socially distance. This same teacher has infants at home that she cares for and other students that are online through FVA. So I'm asking that you go to the front lines, walk through the schools, see and hear the voices of the teachers who are literally being affected by this. In the past month, I've had 2 students vomit in my classroom. There are severe concerns in terms of cleaning in our school in particular. I've expressed those. I've sent messages to Mr. Lamas, who I appreciate, our new administrator, Mr. Miller. He's been on top of everything, and I appreciate his thoroughness in investigating different situations. But prior to adopting this, can you collaborate with teachers? Can you ask how this is affecting them? My students are not learning effectively by being pulled in every 2 weeks, being quarantined for 14 days, coming back. There's breakdown in their education, and it's concerning to me. It's concerning to all of the teachers in our school district.
Your time's up.
I'd just like to say I have concerns that I will give to the secretary for you to hear some of the
Okay.
teachers, their concerns.
Any comments or questions? The reasons we are not in the school is to reduce the amount of traffic that is going in and out of the schools. We aren't asking the parents to come in. As board members, we do not work within the school district all the time. So in order to keep the schools safe, we are choosing to stay out of the schools, to not bring anything in that we could have also, to remain in a safe environment. So that's why we are not in the classrooms. It's not a matter of not wanting to collaborate. I would love to be in the classrooms again, love it. But I also know what's safe and what we do when we limit the visitors coming in, and we are considered a visitor. So that's why we're not there. I think that's all I have on that. Anybody have anything else? No? Okay. Thank you, Melissa. Did you want to give those to Michelle? Okay, the next item will be the approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Mr. Thomas, seconded by Mr. Daly. Is there any discussion? Oh, yes, actually. Okay, we are going to remove item 15.3 from the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to remove 15.3 from the consent agenda and vote on that separately.
I'll amend my motion to approve by removing 15.3 to be considered separately.
Okay, motion was made by Mr. Thomas, and I'm going to say Mr. Johnson. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay, please vote. Are y'all getting it, or is it not?
9.3 in the beginning. I should have spoken.
Okay, Mrs. Solis? Mr. Johnson?
Yay.
Mr. Daly?
Yay.
Mr. Thomas? And myself, yay. Motion will carry 5-0. Okay, let's see. For some reason, I do not even have the next one, which would be items that were removed from the consent agenda. Okay, so item 15.3 was removed from the consent agenda, which would be the community service hours adjustment for graduating seniors.
Can I
Mr.
speak to this
Johnson?
one?
I'm sorry, go ahead, yes.
So we got just like last spring, we changed the community service because once the schools shut down and we had the stay-at-home order, we couldn't possibly have the kids be out doing community service, so we adjusted it. This year, the question was asked from a parent if the same thing was going to happen, and as I look through board policy, the policy is something must have happened where we had one of our cleanups from ASBA. That policy is no longer a board policy, so I don't even think you have to vote on this year. We're not going to have community service as a graduation requirement because it is no longer in board policy. So I don't know if you want to vote on it.
If I could speak to that, I believe Chris is technically correct. We accidentally overlooked it in the cleanup, I think, last spring when a representative from ASBA came down to clean up some language and policies. And because that is not an ASBA policy per se,
It was removed, yeah.
it's not unique, but it's certainly specific to Florence. I think it got kicked out accidentally. Historically, and Tony can correct me on this, I believe we first implemented that in fiscal year '03, and it was 24 hours. Dr. Nine came along as superintendent, and we increased it to 40, and it's been there ever since. Now, naturally, last spring, we suspended it. This year, it's not a policy, so we don't even have it. But I recommend that the new board take it up after maybe at the end of this fiscal year. And hopefully next calendar year will be a better opportunity for everybody to act normal.
Yeah, I would agree that it would need to go onto a future agenda as the board agenda item for a new policy. So there will be no motion on that at this time. Okay, our next item will be a new business, the fiscal year annual financial report, revision number 1. Do I have a motion?
I move the governing board approve the fiscal year 20 school district annual financial report revision number 1 is presented.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Mr. Daly, second by Mr. Thomas. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Okay, motion carries 5-0. Next one will be 16.2, the fiscal year expenditure budget revision number 1.
I'll move to approve revision number 1 of the FY21 expenditure budget as presented to the public.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Mr. Thomas, second by Mr. Daly. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Motion carries 5-0. Next item will be the school matrix instructional model proposal. Do I have a motion?
Ms. Solis?
I move the governing board approve the proposed school level benefits plan for determining a shift to hybrid learning when active cases are at or above 2% of the total school population to online learning when cases are at or above 4% of the total school population.
Second.
Motion is made by Ms. Solis, second by Mr. Thomas. Is there any discussion?
Are we comfortable with those percentages, or can we review those and revisit?
Well, I mean, that would be up to you guys. If you vote no, we go back to the drawing table. If you vote yes, that's how we'll deal with it moving forward. I don't have a problem either way, one way or the other. I mean,
I think at this date, we need to have a plan, and we have to have a plan We're moving into the Christmas break. We don't know what's going to happen. If everything stays steady, we've got a plan for the coming year. If it turns to crap on us, we can come back in a special meeting.
I have a couple questions. One, okay, we're gonna be on break. So obviously staff's not gonna be reporting if they're positive. We're not going to have a way to gauge what our percentages are for when the start of school. So what is our plan? Are we then going by the county? Are we then going by, what are we?
Correct.
So then we would, so if, okay, so we're at, let's just say 11% right now. I don't have those numbers in front of me. We're at 11% right now. If we're still at 11% come January, when do we return? 13th?
Fifth.
January 4th.
Oh, it's January 4th?
Fourth, fifth.
I don't even know. I was giving you all extra.
4th.
So if we come back on the 4th and the percentages are still at 10, we're not returning? Are we going to distance at that time then? Or how is that? Because how are we gauging what our positivity rate is in the schools at the start of that third semester from break?
And real quick before you answer, Chris, are we any closer with the state or with Pinell Public Health on pulling out the prison population? Because I know that a lot of the totals is prison population, and we're having that same problem with the courts here in this area and when they can go back to full service because of prison population in Pinell County. We have a lot of prisons.
So, looking at the percentage of positivity in the schools right now, I don't have a crystal ball, but at 11%, the positivity in our schools has been relatively low. So I think we wait, come back, and we gauge it when we get back in school.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get clarified, what our
Yes.
plan was. So no matter what the county is at that time, we're still gonna return to school
Well,
and see
of
what that
course,
is.
I mean, if all three are in the red, which may possibly happen, I mean, we have 3 weeks from the start of break until we start back up. If we get in the red during that time, maybe we hold a special meeting and we address it at that time. But right now, if we look at what Adam presented today, the spread in the schools is relatively low.
I would agree with
The
you.
director of the CDC came on the record 2 weeks ago, and he said that in the schools is the safest place for our kids. So, I mean, he's a scientist that runs the CDC. He's saying that. We look at the data that, Adam is on it every single day. I mean, he spends every weekend dealing with this, talking with principals, talking with the county health department, and looking at the spread in the schools right now, it's relatively low.
Dr. Fauci was on Channel 3 this morning, or on CBS News, and saying the same thing, that right now the schools are the safest place for our kids.
So I think we move forward into the new year with that in mind. Now, can we hold an emergency meeting at any time we can? I'm open to that.
24-hour notice, all it takes.
So,
I forgot my other question, so it must have just been answered. Any other comments or questions, concerns? I mean, I'm just trying to address all the situations, and I know we don't have a crystal ball, I get that. Also, do I think that postponing the start, I know many districts have other plans out there, and they're gonna, go to distance learning for another 2 weeks after break. I don't see how that possibly could help us, considering the fact of the community is still gonna go out and do what they want. They're still going to do whatever, and then we have no clue as to what our rates are in our school. All I can do is just implore the community to please stay safe and stop the spread. I mean, that's where it's coming from, and I don't know how else we can do it besides maintain that we're doing the classroom. I know that we don't have all the janitors that we need. There's no way. We don't even have subs enough to cover everything. And the matter of the janitors, but that's where we all have to step in as educators. And, if it's a matter of you have to clean down your classroom, we have to clean down our classroom. Is the job we signed up for? No, but it's what we have to do to make this work. I do believe the safest place in our schools is in the schools for the kids. I think that does stop the spread a lot, so I do agree. I just want to make sure we have I want to understand where we're at with moving forward going into it. And I do believe the state guidelines for what the health department put out, wasn't that recommended? It was not mandated, it was recommended, correct?
Yeah.
That's the wording that was used, okay. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, please vote. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, this didn't save. Any items for future agendas? No, I guess all of that. I would just say that we need to put on to the agenda for graduation requirements, probably putting that on. If we can't do it in January, obviously we're not in a hurry, so that just needs to be somewhere in there. And then if we do need to get any future meetings quicker, it's break. I do want everyone to have a little bit of a break. I don't want everyone focused on COVID the whole time, but
Well,
we
we
do have
focused
a
on COVID
district
for
to
10
run.
months.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to change on that. You
The
know?
other thing too that I would request, especially with new board members coming on, is I don't think the board is getting it probably as quickly of a report as if we are closing down a grade level or if we're quarantining one classroom. I'm not seeing that come to the board. I have concerns with new board members coming on. They're usually approached by the community a little bit quicker because they're new. So I would like to see if we could get a report to the board as soon as we close a classroom or something's going on, just to make sure that the new board members are completely informed moving forward in a learning model. All right?
Yeah, easy enough.
Okay. The next regular board meeting will be on Tuesday, January 12th in the Florence Unified School District Administration Building, 1000 South Main Street, Florence, Arizona. The work study session will begin at 5:30 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion was made by Mr. Thomas and second by Mrs. Solis. Is there any discussion?
Good luck, everyone.
Yes, and thank you to our outgoing board members. I can't thank you enough for the past 10 years and 4 years of working with you guys. You guys have done a lot for us, so thank you. Okay, please a vote.
Can I say nay?
Okay, motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everybody. Please take a nice break. Be safe, stay out of the stores, and enjoy as much family time as you possibly can. Thank you.